Mary Rabagliati is remembered around the world as a fierce champion who stood up for people in poverty. She was the first British person to join the All Together in Dignity ATD Fourth World Volunteer Corps. From the age of 20 in 1962 until her death 3 decades later, she helped to build a movement for overcoming poverty. Her life journey began in Guildford, England, where she was born during World War II. Of her upbringing, Mary said,
"My father, a wing commander in the Air Force, was killed during the war when I was a baby. He came from a middle-class background, while my mother was from a working-class family. Because she had to work, I spent 10 years in a boarding school."
Mary's schoolmates remember her as lively and naughty, but also serious about her studies and quick to defend anyone she thought was treated unfairly.
After school, I got a job as a secretary. I grew up in the 1950s, and the choices for women like me were to get married or to go to university. Neither choice appealed to me. I had friends who were desperately seeking a husband. I didn't judge them, and I might get married myself tomorrow. But at 19, that just didn't seem to me like a life goal that should define me as a person.
In hoping to help other people somehow, Mary travelled to France, where Joseph Brzezinski had just begun to shape what would become a worldwide movement of solidarity against extreme poverty. The shantytown where she joined him and a handful of other volunteers was completely cut off.
The nearest bus stop was hundreds of metres away. The road stopped, and you had to walk in the mud to a place where there were no municipal services at all. Hundreds of families were living in terrible conditions without running water or toilets. A few of the men who worked setting up market stalls, and some of the women washed metro stations at night, but most had no regular jobs and would scavenge for used items that they might be able to sell for a pittance. Everything there was filthy, and there were rats all over. But beyond the shock I felt, Brzezinski made me realise immediately that I could do something. I had apparently no particular talent that could be of use, but I could nevertheless do something. The families there needed me to go out and meet them and begin to understand who they were as people. In order to make headway against poverty, Brzezinski also wanted all of us to learn as much as possible about culture, science and the world, to build bridges with society. He was always inviting experts to the shantytown to speak to us about literature or mathematics or biology, anything so that poverty didn't have to mean ignorance and misery. Joy matters too. We were always finding reasons to celebrate, to go out together, to plan a journey or just to dance. This was not in spite of poverty. It was so that people who had been excluded from the economy and society could finally join in everything that makes the world extraordinary.
When the United States launched the war on poverty, Mary spent a year there in order to learn from the civil rights movement's achievements as well as its failures. From there, she returned to Great Britain, where ATD Fourth World had decided to support a programme at Frimhurst, a residential centre for families in deep poverty.
Frimhurst is where I often wept with frustration and anger. The misery of poverty can make people behave harshly. We all lived under one roof together, and the families often lashed out at us volunteers, saying exactly what they thought of us. We were often exhausted from the effort, but with time, I came to see living together as an essential learning process. It challenged who I was and helped me understand what it means to truly listen to another person without trying to give a quick answer.
Mary then studied social administration at the London School of Economics. Her frankness and simplicity made her a natural bridge builder, not only between people in deep poverty and society, but also among people of different countries and cultures. When a fellow student invited her to visit South Africa in 1972, this began a long series of study visits that she made for ATD in the following years to Lesotho, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Israel, and Palestine. On each visit, Mary brought photos of families in poverty she knew in France and Great Britain, and spoke of their lives to tell the story of how it came to be that she was seeking out new people. She questioned people widely to learn from the know-how developed in each country to build solidarity in the face of misery. Her drive to let everyone know what inspired her during these visits led her to launch a newsletter in 1983 called The Letter to Friends in Africa, which has today been broadened into the overcomingpoverty.org website. In 1987, she organized a seminar at UNESCO that brought together many of the people she had met in Africa, along with others from Asia and Latin America. Beginning in 1975, Mary's travels included the first 3 United Nations conferences on women in Mexico City, then in Copenhagen, and then in Nairobi a decade later. In each of these places, Mary's unpretentious convictions persuaded many people to listen to the experiences of women in extreme poverty. At this point, Mary took responsibility for all of ATD Fourth World's publications. She was determined that its newsletters, periodicals and books would serve as invitations to people to get involved in overcoming poverty together.
In factories, in school cafeterias, in the corridors of official buildings, and in the offices of the highest civil servants, government representatives, or business owners, each person we communicate with must see a reminder that the poorest families expect something of them. Each person we meet is a chance for the liberation of people from poverty.
When Mary died of cancer at the age of 50, condolences were expressed by a wide variety of people, from the Director General of UNESCO to a baroness in the House of Lords. Many people in poverty wrote messages like this one.
When I first met you, I was at my lowest ebb and had built a wall around myself. I was 26 years old and the mother of 6 children. Since they had been taken into foster care, I thought that I would never love or trust anyone again. Along you came, the same age as myself. You did have a fiery temper. We used to have arguments before we could sit and talk. Slowly you broke down that wall I had built around me, and you helped me to look at life and stand on my own 2 feet. You helped all of us to discover our own strengths. That saved our dignity.
This is the first video in a series of excerpts from the book Quiet Revolution, the story of Mary Rabagliati and people the world forgot, to be published in 2018.